unmute yourself. And there you are.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
We're back.
Anybody? We are Cardi here, Jason.
Yes.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about Brandon Sanderson's latest book, Tress of the Emerald Sea.
So we were trying to give people time to read it and stuff. Mm-hmm. Whoops. But it seems like
it's been out for technically 2 weeks now.
Well, it seems like everybody's had plenty of time because I see nothing but great postings about it. So,
So we're gonna go ahead and get into that. I think I need to probably fix that at some point. So yeah, welcome to our channel. If you like what you hear today, please consider giving this video a like and subscribe to our channel and all of that kind of stuff.
Try to remember we have lots of stuff coming this year. Although we've been busy and it's only been 2 weeks.
It's only been 2 weeks.
And whoo, I'll tell you what. So we'll do our best.
Yes, and I'll be unboxing this in a separate video. This is the white box.
Yeah, you'll do that. Probably be up tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'll probably unbox it tonight, post it up tomorrow.
So if you're not here today, come back tomorrow.
So if you're new to our channel, you may not know, but we are big Brandon Sanderson fans, as evidenced by our lovely leather-bound collection up here, the Sander shelves, which are all right here on this level. And we tend to talk about him a lot. So we figured we would finally have our conversation about Tress. And for those who don't know as well, Tress is part of a secret project that Brandon did where he wrote 5 novels in complete secrecy from pretty much everybody except for his wife. And 4 of them were released to the public.
Well, no, even from his wife. But she was the first to find out.
Yes. And then 4 of those were released to the public and put up as a Kickstarter that garnered $41 million. Became the most funded, if not the most backed, but that's okay. Exploding Kittens will be really hard to beat.
It might have even been one of... If it's not the most backed, it's really close.
It's like the second most backed.
Okay.
But yeah, Exploding Kittens kind of has them beat. I don't think anybody will really beat that in terms of most backed.
I don't know if anybody's going to beat how much it's got funded.
Yeah. So Tress, well yeah, because Pebble Watch was 23.
Okay, I'll stop what I'm doing.
Like
I'm cleaning computer parts and...
Which I put up a little funny short on our video of the moment that Sander fans kind of broke the campaign.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty funny.
So today we're going to talk about the first of those novels that were released as part of this Year of Sanderson that he did, and that is Tress of the Emerald Sea. For those who don't know a little bit about it, it is actually inspired by The Princess Bride. Brandon finally showed The Princess Bride to his kids, and his wife leaned over and asked him, wonder what would have happened had
Had Buttercup
not just given up, had she actually gone and looked for Wesley instead of assuming that he died. So that's kind of actually what happens in this story. Let's start at the beginning, I guess.
You're a little dark.
I know. I can maybe fix that over here if you want to get started on talking.
So I mean, I don't know if we should go through it step by step, but maybe just kind of talk about some of the highlights that we like. Because even if it's been out a while and people are talking about it, I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Yeah. But my general thoughts so far, I really, really enjoyed this book. It's one of my favorites that Brandon's written in a while. I still really like all the other stuff he's written, but this was just it had everything I wanted in a book.
Yes.
It has. So The Princess Bride is also one of my favorite stories. It's one of my favorite movies, but the way in which he went about this, which I think I knew he had it inspired by The Princess Bride, but I had forgotten until you brought it up. And I was like, oh yeah, it kind of does have that feel to it. Mm-hmm. But the things that it has in it that are some of my favorites are, it's got a lot of Hoyd. And I love Hoyd, and he's got him in a special capacity here.
Yes.
It's got a lot of Cosmere awareness, even though it's not necessarily out there in the Cosmere. Mm-hmm. But it's got a lot of awareness, so it's fun for the deep fans, even though you can completely read this and know nothing about the Cosmere.
You could, actually.
It's got my kind of humor in it. I thought it was pretty funny. It's got new magic, which is always fun. So, I mean, yes, returning to a world and experiencing the magic system of, say, the Stormlight Archive, you kind of know what to expect.
Yes.
So coming into a brand new magic system was really kind of exciting. So new characters, new magic system, new world. And it was a short, self-contained story, but still had all those Brandonisms I really liked.
Yes.
And so, for me at least, it was just such a pleasant read.
It was just so much fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I thoroughly enjoyed Tress as
the main character.
She was just delightful. She was naive, yes, but as naive as anybody should be if they're stuck on one rock for their entire life. She may not have lived under a rock, but she lived on only one rock. And her accidental heroism is just so much fun. It's not accidental in the way that, is unbelievable, though.
It's a very believable story. Yes. It all unfolds very naturally, to the point where some of it is predictable, but it's predictable in a way that you're like, this is fun.
Yes.
So, when you see something coming, all you're thinking to yourself is, oh, that's fun. I'm glad that happened.
And Brandon writes one of the characters, so Charlie, in a very fun way too. And before we get too much further, obviously all of this is going to be spoilers. So if you haven't read the book, you probably don't want to listen to this.
But you can always come back later.
You can always come back later. Please do. As Huck, because his spell, the curse that was put on him didn't even let us say Chuck, because that is a very common nickname for Charlie for some reason.
There's always a Doug.
Yeah, there's always a Doug. The first time we meet him, I was thinking to myself, is this Charlie? As a rat? And I was like, nah, that can't be it. And 3 or 4 more times throughout the entire story, I was like, is this Charlie?
He throws you off pretty good.
Yes. In a way that made me okay.
Yeah, because I had similar thoughts, but he always caught me off guard with, I would be thinking, is this Charlie? Oh, what's going on over here? He very well distracted me with a cat with a shiny object. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, there were several things I caught. I was like, you're totally under a curse.
Yes.
And I remember thinking that right after. I was like, I bet you're Charlie. You're totally under a curse. Mm-hmm. But those things are unrelated. I'm sure of it. I didn't. He did a good job, at least for me. Others might have seen it coming from a mile away, but the way it unfolded for me was just so pleasant. I enjoyed it. It makes me very excited for the new books that we got coming this year.
I know, we got 3 more, 2 of which are Cosmere.
The one that's not Cosmere, I'm not necessarily excited for, because I am not a big Douglas Adams fan. I've read A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a very particular type of writing. The satire can be fun, but it was very much a book that I read once. I didn't really care to read it again. I didn't care to see the movie. I was just like, I've read it. I've been done it. It wasn't that great. It was like going to a monument that's not that exciting. You're like, and there it is. Because everybody talked about it. All my nerd friends were like, you got to read this book. And then I read it. I was like, this is the worst suggestion you've given me yet.
Never read it.
Yeah.
Never seen the movie.
I'm not saying it's bad.
I understand what its
but it's
humor is
very
like,
it's a
though.
very particular type of humor, and if that's not for you, then the whole book's not for you.
Yeah.
And it was not for me. I enjoyed some of it, like I actually liked the opening dialogue bit of A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and maybe Brandon's version of it will be different. But I gotta say, I'm not really excited. The other ones, though,
I like the
which
idea of its
I guess we
mystery,
won't
though.
talk about the titles because he has asked us not to,
Yes.
or he's asked everybody not to, not
Yes.
us particular.
I mean,
Yeah, because we're like best friends.
Yeah,
No.
Speed dial.
Speed dial. But I am excited for those ones. I think they sound very interesting.
We've listened to the readings.
Yeah, we've listened to the readings. We've read the first bit that he's released on each of those, and they sound great. And if they're even remotely as close to as good as this one was, we're having a great year.
So I'm particularly excited for number 3 because of the magic system that he's introduced there. Very interested in this one.
Yeah.
And the number 4 because of who the character is. But anyway, getting back to Tress.
Yeah, I know. Sidetrack. Shiny object.
Sidetracking there. We got a lot of Cosmere drops. So we got an Althean iPad. We got an Elantrian laptop. We've got a spaceship that's a tower. Rena, who's introduced in Secret History.
One of the Irie.
Yeah, so one of the Irie, who is from the Cell system, but is not an Elantrian. It's a different thing.
Yes, but she has Elantrian powers.
Yes, but she's not an Elantrian.
She's not from the
Exactly.
city of Elantris.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
yeah.
this is kind of our first look at somebody who's collecting, who has more than just one magic system in them other than wit.
Yes, that was one thing that was also very exciting because wit is interesting for multiple reasons, but one of the reasons is because he collects magic systems.
He's part of the Collectors Guild.
He's part of the Collectors Guild. Stay tuned. There's something coming up about that.
Yes,
we're
I'm so
very excited about that.
I'm so excited.
We're not talking about the Sanderson Collectors Guild. It's a project that we're working on. It just so happens to be called the Collectors Guild. It just was a perfect name.
Yes.
Yeah, we're very excited about
I
it.
think we need boom mics, honey.
No, we're fine.
Maybe for you.
You need to speak up then.
No. You echo all the way over here. I can see it on the bars over here.
That's fine.
Okay.
You're fine. Everything's fine.
You're just loud.
I probably am loud.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, having people who collect magic systems we haven't seen. I mean, we've seen
world hoppers.
We've seen world hoppers, and we've seen world hoppers kind of bust out elements that are akin to magic systems. So
thinking of like
Kelsier pulls out an Aeon to deliver a message.
a Seon.
A Seon.
Yeah, but
That's a little different than,
That's a little
say,
different.
using a different magic system,
Yes.
which, in all fairness, we've already gotten way into spoilers, but in all fairness, she doesn't actually use more than one magic system.
I think she is the one who has awakened everything. That she awakened those.
But we don't know that for sure. She
don't
could have,
know.
say, bought them from somebody who awakened them.
Sure.
She could have had somebody place the light weaving that was in there.
That's actually not listed as in her Coppermind thing. It's not listed as like a true light, like a surge bound light weaving, because it could be Yolish light weaving. For all
It
we
could
know.
be, but it specifically says the light weaving fell away. Like, it didn't say the illusion, it didn't say the mask, it said the light weaving.
But we do know that light weaving is a term that's used in 2 different places.
We do, but that's still a different type of magic.
And then whoever the heck the lizard guy was, which at first I thought might have been a Shodell, we were introduced to a different Shodell at the end of the Lost Metal when Melan...
I think it's just her being, because the Irie are very craggly to begin with. I think it's
not in like the official depiction of her. The art piece of her by Howard.
I think that's the depiction of her before the light weaving falls away.
No, the light weaving fell away from a totally different person.
Did it?
Yes, there was another. So remember, she's leaving with somebody who is Charlie, and then she's like, "This isn't Charlie," and the light weaving fell off of that Charlie human, and it was a lizard-like creature.
I don't remember. I read this a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was the same person, but
no.
Well,
so
I'll have to go back and look at that.
Rena is just a person. Looks like a person. But yeah, gosh. And then, okay, so let's... the Nalthian tech. That was fun. So Fort basically has an iPad that has Google Translate on it.
Which was fun. Well, so
Yeah,
before we knew anything about it, we're like, ooh, Nalthian tech that has connective circuits or predictive connective circuits that seem to translate his words to other people. I was like, this is really
his thoughts and his feelings into text.
But it was a really interesting way to show someone who's mute and have them communicate. I was like, this is really fun. And then, of course, later on, we get even more Nalthian stuff.
Well, and so what's funny is, I mean, this part wasn't funny. Captain Crow breaks his tablet, which was very sad. Like, the emotion that was described of Fort afterward, I was like, my heart was breaking for him. Because it was his only form of true communication. Like, he's like, nobody knows how to speak to me any other way. He's like, I won't be able to talk to people anymore. Tress comes back up, though, from the Dragon's Den, which we gotta talk about the dragon in a second. Comes back up from the Dragon's Den, and basically has iPad Air 2. and he does even better, right? He's like, this thing just seems to know me better. And that's fun, because it's not that, like, the Nalthians just made one iPad and said, okay, we're good. They apparently made iterations on this iPad.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, not on the podcast, but at dinner, it seems like Brandon's taking sci-fi elements and applying a particular magic system to those sci-fi elements.
In a very fantasy way, though.
So Nalthians are the hard tech, right? And their magic system is that. Although I would take it even a step further by saying, they're the hard tech, but when you awaken something, I would make the comparison to AI. While you have, say, surge binding and stormlight is more the power source. We're now getting into the nuclear age, the atomic age. And then you have, what was the other one I mentioned? Give me another magic system.
Mistborn.
Give me another magic system. I remember I didn't mention Mistborn.
Elantrian.
Oh yeah, Elantrians are different because you have all the different.
So I was just learning today about how it's compared to actually programming languages.
But you have all the different
that makes sense.
Magics on Cell, which is even that itself is very comparable to how many different programming languages we have. Because if you think about it, they're similar. They all do different things, but they're similar.
They are similar in so having taken a few coding classes myself because of my degree.
Yeah.
There are similarities, but those end pretty fast, and everything else is very different because you've got JSON, so JSON scripting. You've got CSS. You've got HTML. You've got, which CSS is really more like an addition to HTML. So think, but the Elantrians themselves from the city use something I consider would be HTML with CSS. They're like, here's our basic, and now we're describing it.
But that's very comparable to what we have on Cell. Because all the magics are like, yes, you're very related, but you're all very for different things.
The door itself is HTML, and everybody else has learned different scripts to add on to the HTML.
Well, I would say the door is programming, and all the different magics that they have on Cell are just different languages. Because not all languages are...
Pretty much everything has a base in HTML, though. That's why I say the door is like that.
Well, no, see, and that's where I would still push... I would say it's still... the door is programming. Because there are magic systems on Cell that are still very different. Like, I would say they're their base is not
I
the
know.
same.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Oh, it's here.
My explanation makes a lot of sense to me.
But that's what I'm saying though is that all these different sci-fi elements are being kind of picked apart and applied to a particular magic system, which I find very interesting. The combination of which has been fun.
What I enjoyed a lot too was we got to get some ether stuff finally.
Oh, we finally learned about the Aethers, yeah.
So we got ether stuff from Twin Soul in the Lost Metal. We get a little bit of a glimpse into a Rosite, what did they call it? Etherbound. True Etherbound. We've even had a whole conversation about this already, about Etherbound versus Gestators and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we got to see a totally different side of that. So I consider the Etherbound to be a symbiotic relationship. We have a bit of give and a bit of take from both sides, but both sides are benefiting from this relationship. Then we get into Captain Crow in Tress, and it's nothing but a parasite for her. It is just taking and taking and taking, and the only thing it gives to her is protection, but only for itself, not even for her. It's protecting her because it wants to continue to gestate. So, like, it's not even like it cares about her in any way. And there's an explanation, too, of these ethers that are around these planets, these moons that are around their planet, and how they're just gorging on the life and just, germinating everywhere, and basically are just these, like, ugly knockoff versions of what a true ether is supposed to be. And it was just, I've never read Ethers of the Night. I don't plan to read Ethers of the Night either. It's an older book. It was unreleased. If he's going to include it in his current books, then okay, I will read about it then. But this was just so much fun too, because that's what gave us the seas. So the Emerald Sea for that matter, then the Crimson Sea and the Midnight Sea, which are the only three we really saw. And we learned a little bit about what these ethers actually represent, which are the elements of, like, vegetation and silicate.
Yeah, they have what did they call them? A primal source or something like that?
Primal element, yeah. And I was like, that's such a different take on what an element could be. And then the seas themselves, the oceans, are actually made up of these spores, so basically sand. And fluidization is what lets the ships go through them. And I was like, and I love that because fluidization is such an interesting thing that with the vibration, you can actually swim through sand. I mean, that's how we've got, like, giant sandworms, right? And how many other things is they create a sonic
it's a very
vibration.
Dune principle.
Yes, very much Dune uses that a lot, obviously. And I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I like when my science fiction and my fantasy can come together this way.
Yeah, and we're finally getting it. We're moving into an age in most systems where it is becoming more sci-fi. Mm-hmm. But because we've followed him this long, we can see where the fantasy is now becoming sci-fi. Mm-hmm. So it's
there was a great explanation somebody said where science fiction is where you treat your science like magic, and fantasy is where you treat your magic like a science. Yeah. And Brandon does both. He treats everything as a science and a magic, but in a way that I've thoroughly enjoyed every single time.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Well, I mean, and basically it's, when you have fantasy in your magic, you explain it.
Yep.
Which makes it interesting, like science. And when you have science that's so fantastical and out there, you don't explain it. You just say,
just a magic.
This is how it works. Which becomes more akin to a hard magic system. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, he does in, like, the Cytonic books. It's like, it's just how it works.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. This makes me super pumped for the next couple of books.
Do you want to talk about Zeus a little bit? Or how
the dragon?
How it was pronounced in your audiobook?
You're throwing me off with your pronunciation.
How do they pronounce it?
I don't remember, but that wasn't it.
So there's a dragon.
There is a dragon.
We actually get to meet a full-on dragon, not just one who's hidden herself away, which everybody's pretty much assumed that cultivation is the dragon.
I think that's all but been confirmed.
Maybe. But, so we meet an actual dragon as an actual dragon, and we get to learn a little bit about what they are as well. They have, the way they're described, they have shiny metal protrusions from their body, so spikes and that kind of stuff, right? And it's actually called dragon steel. And so when they die, this is where, like, one legend came from, that dragons hoard treasure, is because when they die, they're dragon steel, so those spikes and stuff remain behind, and this is, like, you know, an otherworldly material. It's not something that you find from anywhere normally. And I was like, wait a second, this is dragon steel. And then I was like, how does... Then I'm trying to think, I'm like, how does the metal bones of a dragon, basically, how do the metal bones of a dragon relate to Hoyd's backstory? What does this have to do with dragon steel? Because that's what his backstory book is going to be called. But what was fun about this dragon was that he was a glutton for information. He just wanted it all. And it kind of made me think of that owl creature from Avatar: The Last Airbender, who has
the librarian,
his mystical library and everything. Yeah. Kind of made me think of him.
A little bit.
And you know, he has humans as his caretakers for his knowledge and stuff.
Fox people.
Yeah, but that whole scene though too was just so clever. I was like, I did not expect Tress to do what Tress did. I was like, how is she going to get out of this? And then she flips it around back on the captain, because the captain's like, I have brought you a tribute. And Tress is like, I have brought you a tribute. And
I actually thought that was exactly what she was going to do, and it went beautifully.
It did. And the dragon's just kind of like, yes, okay, your turn. What do you have to say about that? Okay, yeah, and you? And he's just kind of chuckling to himself.
I like that he makes commentary, though. He's like, you realize that doesn't help your point, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, dang it.
Yeah. But he's saying it in a very, like, he's not like a bestial creature.
No.
He just happens to be a dragon.
However, he withheld knowledge, which was interesting. So, like, he's like, now that we're all the deal's said and done, what you don't know is I wouldn't have told her this, and this is why she's now gonna live. And
yeah, of course she doesn't know that. He's because
yeah, but he waited till the end of the deal to tell her. He didn't wait. He didn't be like, that's not a good deal because of this. Like, because during it though, he was saying stuff like that doesn't help your case and this. Yeah. So like he was obviously open enough to give input, but that made me feel like he was purposely withholding stuff, which also by Wit's definition of what a dragon is makes me think that's not uncommon. They hoard knowledge and they keep it to themselves, those greedy sons of guns.
But part of it, though, too, is, you know, she's coming in with the information. So Captain Crow comes in thinking that she can be healed and she can leave. But that's not what it is. Her healing only comes by staying close to the dragon. And so she wouldn't have been able to leave anyway, and he would have had 2 servants. But... you know, he let them go with the information that they had because this was their argument. He's like, I don't care. You know, like, I'll pick one of you anyway, whatever. So in a way, there wasn't a need for him to even give this information as it is. As, you know, a human who's like, have some compassion. Have a heart, lady. You know, you'd expect to be like, well, you could have told them, and then she would have known, and then she would have been like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll just stay here then, and Tress can leave, because I guess I'd die anyway.
I don't think that would have been the case, because she was a selfish person.
Yeah.
But what the description that they give of the dragon, going back a little bit, about the dragon steel, makes me curious.
Yes.
Because the original book with Hoyd in it is called Dragon Steel.
Yes.
What does that have to do with the dragon's body?
That's what I just said.
Right, but I mean, what does Hoyd's story have to do with the dragon's body?
I know, and that's what I just said. It's like, what does this dragon's metal bones have to do with Hoyd's backstory?
Unless, is dragon steel what they use to kill Adonalcium?
I don't know. Because
Which,
they even say that too. He even says, he's like, and I was part of a plot.
I was
kill
part of a
God.
secret plot to kill
Yeah.
a god.
Capital G, by the way.
And there was a bunch we learned about Hoyd's past. It was all very interesting. Another question. I had another question that comes to mind. Oh, so the midnight spores.
Yeah. Oh,
We had a long discussion about the midnight
we
spores
did.
and how
Because they create midnight essence, which we were both like, wait a second. We know what this means.
yeah,
And so we started,
So
rabbit holing into Midnight Mother,
yeah.
which is Reshapir.
So is the midnight mother a gestator for midnight spores
Or an ether bound.
or bound to an ether, bound to a true midnight
Yeah.
ether?
So ether bound
Which
being
is
a truly symbiotic relationship.
different than consuming.
Because I don't think she would
Ethers
work as
on
a
the planet.
gestator. Like,
Probably
she
not.
is an unmade, so she is a spren, so she is primarily cognitive and spiritual. So how is she going to consume water to feed to, the gluttonous midnight ether? So, yes. So anyway, so she creates specifically.
Hold on, it doesn't have to be water. Water's just what we know of, because it even says in the book. It says, and in this case, it happens to be water.
Yeah, and we also see later that a lot of them. So when Fort was like, he's like, we can give you water and stuff, and they're like, why when we could just eat you and have bones and your blood?
And your water.
He's like, fine, I'll give the water to the other guys. They're like, oh, okay, never mind, we want it.
Yeah, not the other guys. So
their thing seemed to be, it probably has a bit of water to do with it, because, that's kind of the thing for these more gluttonous ethers that were surrounding this planet.
I have a feeling it's going to go a little beyond that, because it has to do with matter. We know that. There's some sort of matter exchange.
There's also a connection, though. She points out, so like, and she even noticed it with the verdant, so with the green spores, was that, she could kind of direct it and like tell it where to go, but especially the midnight ones desired this connection. So much so that someone could unwillingly make a connection with them, like Fort did accidentally. Like, they just desire this, that they would go seek it out. Capital C connection.
Yeah, which is another reason I think it's possible, although maybe not likely, but it's possible that the Midnight Mother is bound to a true ether.
Yes.
Because I think a true ether, unlike how do they describe the ethers of this world? They produce without.
Yeah, they just germinate always.
Yeah. There's specific words that he uses.
Yeah.
But basically it's overgrowth. They're not supposed to function like this. But we know enough about ethers because we also saw a ether bound in
so Twin Soul.
Yeah, Twin Soul from
he was specifically for Rosite and Lost Metal.
Yeah, in the Lost Metal. And he also used water.
Yeah.
So water.
But he also used investiture. He used that which that's another thing. That jar of condensed doer magic.
So I think a true ether bound has you exchange matter, probably still water, but maybe they can choose. It doesn't have to be water. Maybe they'll be like, just give me vegetation. I'll work with it.
Yeah.
But I think substitutions can be made, like investiture. So I think it's very possible that the Midnight Mother has a true ether bound who's like, yes, my desires are beyond water. Give me water on the regular basis to keep me happy. But
I'm not sure how she would, though, because Reshapir is a spren and she doesn't eat or drink.
You're not eating and drinking it for them necessarily.
Yeah, but I don't think they even would consume it. Anyway.
But no, that's what I'm saying. She doesn't have to consume it.
Reshapir's thing, though, too, was she would send out these midnight essences, basically, to just learn. So maybe that's part of it, too, is, like, give me knowledge, give me, investiture, the ether saying this, and I give you, maybe more sentience, more opportunity, more whatever.
Right. So I think that's kind of where I'm getting at, right? Mm-hmm. So the give, like Fort. Mm-hmm. Fort's not drinking the water for the ones that he made connections with. He's giving them the water.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably more akin to the way a true bound is. Now, Twin Soul did drink it, but I think he could also just give it and say consume it.
Yeah, I think consuming makes it easier, which kind of
because
makes me think
it's a symbiotic relationship. Yeah. They are a part of him, but I think
even a symbiotic parasite is usually within somebody.
I think like if I'm providing it to you, it might even crawl out. Take some and then they like kind of go back in, right? Yeah. So just because it lives in you doesn't mean... Or maybe
even touch the rosite to it, and so the rosite consumes it. Or
yeah, something like that. Which I imagine that all the different types of spores function a little differently, right? Mm-hmm. So it might not be a general consumption, and it might be. We don't know.
We don't know much of anything. Yeah. These are only the 2 times we've seen it.
But also, the Midnight Mother that just might be a name. So...
Well, they call her that because she creates midnight creatures, but we didn't know that was related to ethers in the past.
Well, we still don't know that it's related to ethers.
We don't, but that is suspiciously
It is suspiciously similar. However, as we get into more of the sci-fi age, there are going to be more and more links as I think we get to these like basal levels of what it means to be invested.
Yeah.
And so maybe there is some sort of link between what the Midnight Mother does and what a true ether of the Midnight Spore does. Mm-hmm. Maybe there is a link. Mm-hmm. Kind of like how there might be a link between... I mean, there is a link, but how there is a link between an Elantrian and someone from one of the other kingdoms on Cell. I can never remember the names of the kingdoms.
Yeah, I just know them as the Forger Kingdom.
Yeah, the Forger Kingdom. There's the Bone Kingdom.
The Harathan Kingdom.
Yeah, the Harathan Kingdom.
I never remember them.
But we know that they're all related under the door. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's... But we also know that all the Cosmere stuff is related in a way.
Yes.
So like connection goes across borders, goes across different types of magic system. So...
Which, that connection stuff was really interesting. We didn't talk a whole lot on video about the Lost Metal, but I was just thinking of Shy, Moonlight, whatever, which is, her name is funny too because...
Didn't we? I thought we talked about Lost
Metal. Because we had a brief audio discussion and posted that up.
Okay. I forgot.
Which I should do this thing where I go like this, and it's like this video and all that stuff.
Because it's important. It helps.
Yeah, subscribe to our channel. Help us hit 100. Anyway, for Shy to use that stamp and change herself into a Elantrian, it wasn't just having the door and then using the stamp. It was also, she used a drawing of the area that they were in, a map.
To force a connection,
yeah. Because their magic on Elantris is very geo-based. Mm-hmm. Like, the further you got away from Elantris, the harder it was to do your magic. The further you got away from the Forger Kingdom, the harder it was to do your magic. Which apparently Shai is just brilliant and knows how to do stuff on totally different planets.
She's great.
She's awesome. And her name cracks me up because just as Wax and Wane is a joke on the moon, which they don't have a moon on Scadrial, people are like, what's a moon? And Shai's like, we're not going to get into that.
Go to Tress's world where we got 8 of them.
Yeah.
Or however many it was.
It was like 11?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I kind of wish we would have gotten a few more of the C's, but I understand this being a one-off book. It's a story. You can only go through so many things.
And it's fine. And I actually imagine some of this will come back into play in later... where we'll meet someone from Tress's world in the future.
Who just carries around jars of these spores.
Yeah.
And who's a practical magic user.
Or we'll hear of why things are so weird on Tress's world. Because I don't think things just go awry because. I think they go awry for a reason.
Well, in the latest updates to White Sand, there's been some Arcanum updates as well.
Which spores are very interesting. They're very similar to sand.
Yes, so there's that too, right?
Yeah.
And the way that their connection is, which the sand requires water.
Yep.
Which makes me wonder, is it actually sand, or is it maybe a spore?
I thought that in the beginning.
Right?
And I think it's very possible it is a spore.
But not as voracious as these other... Because
I think it might be like your general... Almost like you go to the store, what do you get? You get shiitake mushrooms. Uh-huh. But there's other weirder type of mushrooms out there.
Well, thinking like you toss water onto the sand, all it does is turn the sand black. Uh-huh. Whereas if you toss water onto the spores of Tress's planet and crap happens. Like a lot of crap. Vines, spikes, midnight essences,
and who knows what. Obviously, ethers are on the brain of Brandon, because this is the second one in a row of ethers. So, because we got them in the Lost Metal, and he mentions some of their stuff too. It's too dangerous to go home. At least for him. That's how I took it. It was too dangerous for him, not necessarily for others. But it's too dangerous for him to go home. And he kind of postulated, even though his group kind of backhandedly said, yeah, okay, that's cute. But he's just like, oh no, ethers existed before Adonalcium. And he's like, maybe not before Adonalcium, maybe before the shattering.
Yeah, pre-shattering, but probably not pre-Adonalcium is what they're saying.
That whole conversation happened, right? So they're like, that's cute that you think it was before Adonalcium. You're
so adorable.
Yeah, so they're, pre-shattering possibly. They're a species as old as perhaps Hoid, which again makes it really interesting to get something like that. So there's one other thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to Tress. One other thing that I find really, really interesting. There's a few other things, but this one in particular. The Khandra.
Oh yeah, Ulam. He's actually mentioned by Melan at the end of the book as another one of the Khandra who was off-world. So he's been out there for hundreds of years now.
Well, and Hoid's one offline since Sazed released the Khandra. Mm-hmm. So
this is set after the end of Era 2.
I think it's set after Era 3.
Well, it's for sure after Era 2.
Yes.
But we know also because of a throwaway line of, yes, like those ships that have been landing on your planet recently, which is First of the Dusk people, or First of the Sun people, so Sixth of the Dusk, Arcanum Unbounded short story. They have spaceships showing up, and we know from various other reasons that this is actually set hundreds of years in the future. So the Tress story is at least hundreds of years in the future because spaceship, and then who knows how long after that Hoid is actually telling this story.
But that whole one-off line of Sazed releasing the Khandra tells us so much in a sentence. One, Hoid refers to the shards as people, not as the shard. He said Sazed.
Did he?
He did. Which I find interesting, which also makes a lot of sense because he knew the shards. He was a part of the plot, as he said. He knows all 16 personally. So for him to refer to them by name rather than by the shard that they carry, I actually think makes a lot of sense.
Say Sazed. I swear they've all been getting weirder ever since Sazed released them. Anyway.
Yeah. So I actually think it makes a lot of sense for Hoid to refer to them by their name rather than by the shard that they carry. So that brings up another...
Well, and even though Sazed is a new vessel, Hoid still knew him before he became a vessel because, he was just kind of in and out and around.
But it's like someone taking the position of your best friend. You're like, yeah, but this used to be Joe's.
But now it's Doug.
It's like, yeah, but you can call me CEO. No, you're Doug. Because there's always a Doug.
That was such a funny part of this story too.
The Dougs. Yeah.
The Dougs.
But it makes a lot of sense and actually think informs us of something. And that something is we now have to be careful of names that Hoyd throws out that aren't connected to something that we might know, because I think this makes a lot of sense for the character of Hoyd to refer to the shards as a person, not as the shard. So, because he's not going to go around
He's
saying...
able to recognize the difference.
I think he would go around calling, he would go around calling them AT and Rays. And
He did.
But, like, I think it's more common for him to do that than to say odium or harmony. I think he's just like, that's just the power behind the person. The person is who I'm referring to. Like, so I think we now have to be very careful the names that Hoyd throws out, because I think it's very possible that those end up being shards.
Yeah.
The other thing it tells us is that Sazed released the Khandra, which we got an inkling of at the end of the Lost Metal. He sends them out into the Cosmere to get more aware, but more to benefit Harmony, right? Harmony wanted to know what's going out there so I can defend my planet. But,
even as he's becoming Discord.
But to release the Khandra is something different. Like, that makes me...
I think maybe you're reading a little bit too much into that sentence.
I don't think so.
I think that's the same thing.
I think I'm reading the exact amount into the sentence.
I think that's the same thing of him being like, okay, go forth, my children.
Well, so, but I think it either, if you're taking it from your kind of relaxed point of view, which is, go forth, my children. At the end of Lost Metal, he was sending out a select few. To release, to me, implies a mass release. So either...
Unless you mean release from direct control, though, too.
I think
he says,
that's...
I will no longer control you.
That's what I'm going with.
That would be quite the promise to keep.
But, so I have a number of feelings. I think this sentence is huge. Because I think he did release them from control. Because he says, and then they get weirder and weirder, right? Which is why I think he's released them from control. But two, I don't think he does that as Harmony. I think, again, intentional as to why he calls them by person rather than by shard. I don't know if Sazed is Harmony anymore.
No, he's totally turning Discord.
I don't know if he's that either, because I don't think they're just going to leave him as Discord.
No, I think it'll be I don't think he's going to go full Discord, right?
Discord.
Like, even like Discord for My Little Pony or something. Yeah. He's not going to go full evil, but he's not going to be, standoffish anymore. I think he's going to maybe be a little bit more involved as Discord.
I think something happens to Sazed as a shard. I wonder if either he becomes something else, or if someone either breaks him or takes it from him.
Or maybe someone finds a way to split it again.
That's what I mean by break him. So, like...
But not killing him.
Not kill Sazed, but breaks him.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe he takes preservation and someone else takes ruin. Like, I don't know, Thydekar.
Cosmere.
I know. But it would actually make a lot of sense. At this point, they're both two sides of the same coin. They want the same thing, but through different methods. Thydekar kind of is the ruin to the preservation.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but
so I
he's
think...
doing it all to protect Scadrial, which was another thing we got into.
Ruin was kind of doing that too.
But the difference of Kelsier on Scadrial versus... or the Ghost Bloods of Scadrial versus the Ghost Bloods of Roshar. We talked about this off screen. They're two very different things. But anyway, that's a whole another beast.
But I think this sentence was intentional. I read into every line that Hoyd says. But I think this is intentional to tell us that things have changed on Scadrial. Because I don't think releasing all of the Khandra is something Harmony would do. And then having them released and out there is just also really interesting, because several times in the book they mention how basically they're unkillable.
Yeah.
In different ways. In some ways he's like they're basically unkillable. In other ways it's like they're really hard to kill. And then other times they're like, the only one in here harder to kill than me is probably Hoyd.
Yeah.
So like
And Tress is like, hang on a second. And he's like, no.
Yeah, he's like, we don't have time for that. But yeah, like, you just released a whole bunch of immortals into the universe who are basically unkillable. Although...
They also can't make more of them, though.
They can't. But although it seems like the universe is, we'll just say, prepared for it. Because when they show up to the sorcerer's thing, she's like, and I got a vat there for Oolong just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
It's like, that is... You're prepared for a conjurer to come around? You're just going to keep a vat of acid? Like, that is both dark and awesome.
Yeah.
Because Oolong obviously isn't going to do nothing. But...
you keep calling him Oolong.
I do, on accident.
Oolong tea. Oolong tea.
But that means I don't think she's the only one who's out there like, I need to protect myself from some conjurer, because when you set people free like that, you get all varieties.
Yeah.
You get the good ones, you get the lazy ones, you get the assassin types, you get those who go bat crazy.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we see 100 lives version of a Khandra, which we kind of already had with what's her face,
Bleeder.
Yeah, but
Messy.
But now I think we'll have more of those now that they're free. By my interpretation, reading way into this line.
This one word.
I think they're free of control, which I think the
most
more
of them
immortals you have out there who you can't kill.
I think most of them, though, will still kind of stick to...
I do, too.
I think they'll be weird, maybe like Oolong, but he's not a bad person.
But stories are very rarely about the bulk. It's usually about the few special people.
He's eccentric, but he's not a bad person. He even politely asks before he does anything.
Yeah. Can I have your brain after you die?
And he doesn't do anything if you say no. He respects it, but he's still, he's a little bit weird.
He's weird.
He even still respectfully refers to Sazed as father.
Which is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so I think most of them will actually be more like Ulam and Melan. A little bit weird, but all around just kind of good people anyway.
But
she goes on and on about rotting bodies and how those are the best tasting and stuff, but she's not a bad person. That's just what she eats.
Yeah, but people you can't kill are very useful tools.
They can be, and you can break them. Meaning you can break their mind and make them bend to your will. So there is opportunity for them to be broken.
So that leads me to one quick thing, which I find it interesting that we have a variety of cups from a variety of different worlds.
Yeah, there's one cup that had Forger writing on it.
Which makes me think that visiting different worlds, at least in the time place of Tress, is pretty common.
Well, the Iriali were there.
Yep, the Iriali were there.
They're apparently everywhere.
Rena, or however you say it, Rena, she got there on her own spaceship. She didn't come through like a perpendicularity or something.
Nope.
Hoyd was there, like a dragon was there. And so that leads me to my last point. There seems to be an unspoken rule in the Cosmere, almost like the Prime Directive, which I know Brandon's a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
But
I've always liked the idea of a Prime Directive.
But you don't interfere in the development of a world.
And so that was the ultimate reason he let Tress go instead, was he's like, oh, you're kind of important right now. I'm not supposed to interfere. You go ahead.
Sorta, except for they did point out someone across the way is also doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So she wasn't that important, but on this one planet, you had like 5 different immortals who were just like,
world hoppers everywhere.
We're just here to hang out, but we're not going to interfere.
Can you imagine being like a brand new, totally new? So it'd be like going into Star Wars and not knowing that Anakin is Luke's father. Like, can you imagine being a brand new person? Like, I'm trying to think of the first time I realized that this person from this book is the same as this person from this totally other different book. Like, I love it.
I know. Those who are first comers to this stuff are so lucky.
Yes. Like, so Abby actually just finished the Stormlight Archive, And she
Okay.
actually started on Stormlight Archive, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she just finished reading those, and she only got into it like a month ago. Abby, the Nerdy Alchemist, go check her out. She's on Twitter and Instagram. Fantastic artist.
Yeah, she's been helping us out with some stuff.
Yeah, so at the Nerdy Alchemist. But anyway, like, all these new people have been coming in, partly because of the Secret Projects Kickstarter. They're like, never heard of Brandon, but y'all are excited, so I guess I'm going to try it out. Like, I'm so envious of some of these new people who are coming into things. It'd be like starting Breath of the Wild with no memories of it.
Yeah, it's
or
looking back is always nice, which is why I like looking back on youth. You're like, you don't know how lucky you are.
Oh, sweet summer
I'm
child.
so old. Yeah. So those are all my general big thoughts. I'm sure there's some other smaller things we could touch on, but I think we probably droned on enough.
Yeah, we've been at this for about an hour.
Yeah. So for anybody who stopped by, thank you. For anybody who stuck with us, also thank you.
I know we kind of went off topic a few times from Tress.
Very much did.
If you're talking about the Cosmere, you can't help but go off topic.
Well, and it's also late, so it's hard to kind of stay focused.
Yeah, our brains are over there.
Our brains are over there. But I hope you guys stay tuned. We do have fun things planned this year.
Yeah.
We should get to most, if not all of them. It's going to be fun times. So like and subscribe, follow us, and we'll hopefully hit you guys up with some exciting surprises. Bye.
I feel like we should have some kind of like
outro.
Yeah, outro or like slogan or something. I don't know.